I'm Alison Eyring, organization psychologist, CEO, and endurance athlete. I've spent the last 25 years helping companies solve the people and organizational challenges of growth. I've worked with all types of CEOs and business leaders across the world, but it takes a special kind of leader to successfully grow a business. I call them growth leaders. These leaders have an edge for growth. This allows them to drive performance today while transforming their business for tomorrow while keeping their people energized. So whether you're starting a company or reigniting a team within a large, mature company, I'll show you what it takes to successfully drive business growth through conversations with some of the best growth leaders I know. In this episode, I speak to Wilf Blackburn, Chief Executive Officer at Prudential Assurance Company Singapore. Singapore is the second largest market for Prudential in Asia, and its fastest growing market in Southeast Asia, where they serve close to 1 million customers. Welcome, Wilf, and thanks for being with me on Growth Leaders.
Thanks, Alison. Great pleasure to be here talking to you.
So, Wilf, I just want to ask you a little bit about yourself. You are actually the only leader I know with 5 children. How would your children describe you to me?
Yeah, we're really blessed to have 5 children. I read the birthday cards I got from them last month. They all write long messages these days. And I guess the one common theme that comes out is that I'm supportive. And I suppose behind that, there's a couple of sub-themes. I guess encouraging, obviously, parent, the unconditional love is there, but the support is the theme, and which is quite nice given that they now range in age from 16 to 25.
And they still want to go on holidays with you.
We fund the great holidays, yeah.
That's awesome. But Wilf, I do recall that just before we started talking, you told me that one of your children said that you were like Lucifer from the Netflix series. Now, how's that?
Yeah, they suggested that I watch Lucifer. What they quite liked about Lucifer, that several things I liked about it. One that reminded them of me was the sense of trying to do the right thing, being willing to take some pain and some discomfort in every sense, and not being influenced at all by trying to be popular.
Awesome. This is great. Now, you came from Northern England. What was the town called?
I come from Newcastle in the northeast of England. Newcastle's the town whose club beat Manchester United on Sunday.
Congratulations. Excellent win. And you told me that when you were 11, you had one of your first cross-cultural experiences. What was that? I
grew up in Newcastle, strong, close-knit community, big city in the northeast. My parents had been born there, lived there until they're in their 40s. There was no expectation in our mindset that we'd leave, but at the age of 11, because of my father's work, we moved to the southeast of London, of England, just by London, and so that was a real sort of changer for me. Everything changed. I had to change everything, including dropping my accent, my dialect, learn to fit in. And I think that was the stage in my life where I guess I learned how to adapt to new people and new environments.
I guess at 11, you're so impressionable, so that makes a big impact on you.
It was really important to learn how to fit in at that age. There's no choice. Yeah.
Well, I'm amazed that for the last 18 years, you've been in Asia, and you've been in, is it 7 countries?
Yeah, we've been really fortunate to live in 7 East Asian countries, from China up in the north right down to Singapore in the south. It's been a tremendous journey, one that we really weren't expecting. We thought we'd be coming out to Asia for just a couple of years.
Right, famous last words.
Yeah, 4 young children at the time. Thought it'd be a fantastic experience for them to grow up with people in different cultures. And in Singapore would have been enough, and that was great. And then still here, so many years later.
Such a great experience. Which has been your favorite?
Love them all for different reasons.
Like your children?
Yes, absolutely. Of course, they're all so different. Loved so many aspects of the Buddhist culture in the years we spent in Thailand, but the humanity in Vietnam, the sense of fun in the Philippines, in China, the pace, the scale of everything, and then the diversity in Malaysia. It really is, truly Asia. And then, of course, Hong Kong and Singapore, the vibe, the energy they have, the hubs. They've all been fantastic in their own way. Just like the children, no favorites, but you appreciate the differences.
How many years ago was it that you came back to Singapore then to head Prudential in Singapore?
I've been here now for exactly 3 years in Singapore. Yeah.
You actually started your career as an actuarial, and most actuarials I know aren't the most people-oriented people. They're trained to understand risks and probabilities, and so What was it about you that kind of moved you from that world into this world where you clearly love leading people?
Yeah, I became an actuary by mistake. I was drawn to that because I had a mathematics degree, and it seemed like that's something people with maths degrees can step into. And I didn't particularly enjoy it. I learned a lot, and that's how I found myself in the insurance world. But increasingly, I found quite early on when I had some people responsibility, that was when I came alive, when I had the chance to get out and about and work with the salespeople, even if it's on a product or a sales tool or something that involved the actuarial work. That was what drew me the most. And then, so by the time I was in my late 20s, that's the kind of stuff I got involved in.
So the secret is to find actuaries that don't like the work.
There are not many people become actuaries by mistake. And right. I was never going to be successful long-term as an actuary. So
you had to find what you did love.
Yeah, and fortunately I got some early opportunity to practice being a leader, and I realized that there's so much I can learn. But I enjoy it, and I think we tend to do well over the long run if we're doing things that we enjoy. Yeah.
I love that. I just was looking at some research recently that showed that one of the best predictors of the growth rate of leaders, of how much they grow over time, was their identity as a leader. And so that's what I'm hearing you talking about, is discovering very early that you liked leading people, you liked working with people and helping them, and that probably then helped you in your career grow as a leader.
Well, I was getting some good positive reinforcement in a way I'd never experienced through my actuarial work, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I didn't start out as an actuary, I started out as a person. I was able to rediscover all the things I liked about being with people, which I'd always liked in my first couple of decades before I started on the professional career.
Coming up in the next
I
segment.
said, let's find some of the young millennials who are typical of the kind of staff that will be attracted to our kind of work and culture, and we let them design the new environment.
You're listening to Growth Leaders, a podcast with Alison Eyring.
Now, I remember visiting the Prudential offices before you started as CEO, but when you started in your job, I remember that you went and you sat down on the first floor in the customer service center. Tell me about that. Why'd you do it?
All right. Okay. 2 or 3 things that were going on. But firstly, I don't like working alone. However large the prison cell, it was half a floor, but it's just not me. I came here to work with the people. And so at a very practical level, I decided I'm not going to sit up here on my own. I've got to sit somewhere. And of course, people interested to know where are you going to sit. If I'd sat with the finance department, it'll give a symbolic message about cost, or if I'd sat with the technology department, it'd send a message, technology is important. Well, we decided that one of the biggest strategic shifts for us was to become truly customer-centric. And so symbolically, for me, there was a great opportunity to show that the customer's important. In our customer service center, walk in center downstairs in the building where hundreds of customers coming in every day. We had 9 desks, and customers would be sent to one of the desks when their number got called. And I decided I would steal desk number 9, and so that became my desk for quite some time. And it was a great opportunity actually just to really understand what things customers were interested in.
So what did the employees think or do when you came and sat next to them?
At first they were terrified that the thought that
the big boss was sitting
no one
next
wanted
to him.
to sit at desk number 8
Right.
anymore, and they were absolutely terrified, thinking I'm there to check up on them. And then quite quickly they realized 2 things. Firstly, I'm there to understand better the concerns of our customers. I'm not there to check up on their work. And secondly, they realized I don't do that much desk work because I spend most of my time out and about with people at events, at meetings, and so on.
Right.
So that kind of surprised them. He doesn't seem to spend much time at his desk. So
it gave him a chance to see what was important to you.
Yes.
Right.
It did.
I really love that, because if you look at the research on growth, it shows that having an external orientation is really important. So that move for you not only helped you drive more of a customer orientation or external, but it also was a very symbolic act of what was important to you as a leader.
Yes, that's right. That's one of the things I've realized over time, that it's, people pay attention to what you do and how you spend your time and where you spend your time and who you spend it with. That really speaks volumes.
It does matter.
Yeah.
I always say that the more senior you are, the more you speak into a megaphone. And
Oh.
even little words can have huge impact.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Singapore's a goldfish bowl. Our environment, we've intentionally, for transparency, created a goldfish bowl within a goldfish bowl. And so, we expect all of the people in leadership positions are being watched all of the time, yeah.
Now, shortly after you had that experience, you moved your office into a new building, And it was really quite innovative, the way that you renovated your space. You took away people's offices, you created dynamic seating. Talk a little bit about what it was that drove you to make those changes.
Right. Well, we decided that in Prudential in Singapore, that although we'd been successful for many decades and a leader in our segment, the world was changing, the environment was changing. And so we recognized we were going to need to transform ourselves. Many of our business strategies, the emphasis, for example, putting the customer first, the distribution channels, the products, the customer segments. But in order to make the shift, we recognized we would need a much, much more collaborative culture. We'd need one that was more innovative, one where people who were closer to the customer could be empowered, could be even more accountable. And also we recognized the culture would need to be built around collaboration. And so we felt, since we've got to move to a new office, that the lease was up, let's from the outset build an environment that's based on the pillars of these 5 values of our culture: trust, empowerment, collaboration, innovation, and accountability. And consistent with that, and recognizing that many of the people we needed to attract were going to be not typical of our leadership team, we said, let's find some of the young millennials who are typical of the kind of staff that will be attracted to our kind of work and culture, and we let them design the new environment. So effectively, we handed over 2 floors to them, and consistent with our values, we held them accountable and said, look, we're moving in 8 months' time, get it ready. And they created this environment that we moved into. And again, as you say, consistent with the expectation. It's flexible seating, so we can every day work with the people we need to work with. If we need to come to the office at all, lots of shared spaces for discussion. And for them, part of making this work was removing some of the potential negative aspects, and they felt hierarchy would get in the way, so they created no symbols of status. So we all have the same size locker, none of us get our own desk.
So you don't even have your own desk?
No, there's not much need for that. Yeah.
So one time you said to me that you designed your office thinking it was for millennials, and you discovered when it was done that it was also a more welcoming place for older employees. Say more about that.
Yes, our paradigm was that millennials have great expectation of flexibility to come and go as they please, to work whatever hours they want, to be devoid of some of the problems that come with hierarchy, like bigger offices for more senior people and
bigger
so on.
Windows, more wheels on the seats.
Yeah, all that stuff. Now, actually, what we found was creating that kind of attractive environment, which is open and free and collaborative and transparent. That's also attractive to lots of people throughout their life. But many of the older ones just hadn't expected it and hadn't experienced it before. And we found particularly people later on in their working lives, in their 60s and possibly even in their 70s, they also like to be able to come and go as they please and build their work in or to fit in with other aspects of their life. They like to be in an open place where they can talk to people, and they don't want to be knocking on people's doors and all that kind of stuff.
Right, especially if their boss might be half as old as they are.
Right, which the older you get, the more chance there is that you're going to have a younger boss. And so it was actually what we found is that creating a fun environment, one that's engaging and vibrant, and that's encourages accountability and collaboration, well, that could work for everybody, regardless of age. Now, we accept it maybe doesn't suit everybody, but that we think is independent of age. Some people like our environment, some don't, and we're not trying to be attractive to everybody in Singapore. You can't. But we're trying to attract the big people who like our values.
I love the story of your move into your office. And aside from that, I know that you've driven a lot of change within Prudential Singapore. Do you think you could have made the changes that you've made in the old premises? Was it reliant upon that change, or did it make it easier? Or what was the relationship?
Well, we started to make the changes about a year before we moved to the new office, and partly to prepare the way, but some things are more difficult. So now we're spread over 2 lateral big floors, and before we run 7 or 8 floors, it's harder to get a joined up organization when people are spread across multiple floors. We took down a lot of the private offices that people had, so they got used to the idea of not having a private office. So some of the things we were able to do by removing things, but creating the common areas, like creating an atrium so we can have snap town halls and discussions and bring everyone together. That was kind of difficult in the old design. It would have been a major renovation to get this. But having said that, our office that we have today, it's essentially it's just a glass box, and we've been able to do some interesting things on the inside. Yeah, that could still have been possible, but it would have been more difficult.
More difficult.
Yeah.
And you said that you were wanting more innovation and collaboration. What evidence do you have that you've achieved those?
Well, there are some things that have happened naturally now that wouldn't have happened before. Some of the business results we're getting are a result of people from different areas coming together and being open to new ideas. I can talk about some as we get into the business later, but things that happen naturally and really quickly now wouldn't have happened before. We now, just simple things, particularly in, say, breaking down silos and collaboration. Now, when I notice when we have visitors, like our group CEO visiting a couple of weeks ago and had 7 or 8 people presenting some things together, and they introduced themselves, but they didn't say which department they worked in, because that no longer matters. They're just...
That's really nice.
Whereas previously people are so...
Would have been more formal.
Yeah, they were more... And identifying themselves with a function or a silo rather than just being part of the team. So they're sometimes the small things. And we had somebody who was new senior person joined a strategy session and was there, it was like a day and a half, and said at the end, I wouldn't be able to tell from people's comments which department they came from. They're all talking for the company, and
right.
I think that's cool. We didn't, we didn't used to be like that. But there's a belief behind it that if we do these things and act this way, we'll get better business outcomes.
That's really great. Usually you can just hear people's silos rattling, so it's great to hear about connections across groups.
Coming up in the next segment.
We decided there's no reason to ask people to stop coming to work just because they hit a particular birthday. There is a war for talent.
You're listening to Growth Leaders, a podcast with Alison Eyring.
Wilf, earlier you spoke to me a little bit about that you have many generations in your workforce. And one of the things that I've appreciated about you and your organization is that you've really been a voice in Singapore about longevity. Tell me a little bit about what your thinking is as a company and why do you care about this?
Right. We've always been in the business of being with people throughout their lives. And I guess that's the concept of life insurance. But things have changed a lot. Firstly, people are living much, much longer. Singapore, we've got now the highest life expectancy in the world. Half the people born this year will live to more than 100 years of age. And so there really is a new lifespan that people have to prepare for. But we've done some research and discovered that a lot of people are concerned about this. They're worried that they can't afford to live for 100 years, that they won't be healthy enough to enjoy it. They worry about relationships. They worry about what's going to happen if they stop work in their early 60s and then they're around for another 40 years. There are lots and lots of concerns. We believe it's our role, and it's certainly consistent with our purpose of helping everyone to live well, to help people to prepare for this much, much longer lifespan. So it's very consistent with who we are. For our customers, to help them, it starts at home. It starts with our staff. And so it's had an impact for us as an employer.
Is it true that you got rid of mandatory retirement age within your organization?
Yeah, we scrapped the retirement age. I mean, the concept of retirement is going to come under increasing challenge in the years ahead. But again, consistent with people not being ready to retire or stop gainful employment at, say, 62 or extended at 67, we decided there's no reason to ask people to stop coming to work just because they hit a particular birthday. There is a war for talent. And our view is if someone reaches a particular milestone in terms of the number of years since they were born, then if they're still talented, if they're still performing, it would be commercially suicidal to stop them coming to the office, to force them to stop working. And so there was a little bit of self-interest there. And, by the end of the next decade, a quarter of the population will be over the age of 65. So becoming attractive to older workers as well as remaining attractive to younger workers is also commercially in our interest. But the other part of it is, back to the research, we recognize people are concerned about how they're going to fund their lives if they have to stop working in their early 60s. So it made sense for us as a large employer to remove that concern from our employees. So again, as with everybody else, if they can perform, then they can stay. And so that's what happened. That was behind it.
Right.
Coming up in the next segment.
Yeah, we shouldn't compromise the quality of what we do, and we shouldn't take unnecessary risks because we're managing people's financials and so on.
You're listening to Growth Leaders, a podcast with Alison
You're in an
Eyring.
organization that's been a successful organization. It's been around for a really long time, and you've been driving growth and transformation. For you as a leader, what's been your greatest challenge?
The greatest challenge for us is to get the balance right between holding on to the great things that we built over 9 decades, when we're future-proofing ourselves, making ourselves, fit for the future, relevant for the future, recognizing that you don't need to change everything. So we've got a wonderful brand, and people are very, very proud of the brand. And so that's something to treasure and to hold on to. We've got 900,000 customers, which is close to a third of the adult working population in Singapore are Prudential customer, and they've been very, very happy. And so making sure we continue to give them what they value and what they want, right, but at the same time adapting to their new expectations in the future. That's the challenge. But I have to say, in Singapore, it's relatively easy to manage this kind of transformation because everything we're doing is consistent with the direction of the country and the expectations of the government and the people, investing in technology, investing in people, for example, through the Skills Future initiative. We're not out of line with the way society is moving. In fact, we shouldn't be, because we're there to support and to contribute to this evolving society. Because everything's happening in one city, it's relatively easy to manage this kind of transformation, say, compared to, say, doing it across every part of China or even every province in Vietnam. So I think it's one of the advantages of Singapore. You can therefore go much, much faster.
Right. Well, you talked about the need to sort of honor the past as well as bring about change. Do you think that your biggest risk as a leader is it going too fast or is it going too slow?
I think with this kind of thing, naturally organizations are set up to resist change. The tendency will be to go too slow. So you don't need to worry about going too fast. In my view, we can always go faster. And sometimes when we're transforming, provided we do it well and we learn how to change as we go. It's like in the car when you're stepping up through the gears. It's going from first to second can be a bit clunky. By the time you're going from 5th to 6th, you barely feel it. But managing a smooth gear change is important. So it's not actually about the speed. And I think getting up into the higher gears is generally better because the world's changing so quickly.
So you want to be able to get good at going fast.
Yeah, one of the biggest regrets people say is, I should have gone faster. No one ever says, rarely do people say I changed it too fast when they ended up in a better place. But to take everybody with you on the journey is very important. We have many stakeholders. We're in a heavily regulated industry. We've got great responsibilities. We shouldn't compromise the quality of what we do, and we shouldn't take unnecessary risks because we're managing people's financials and so on. So we shouldn't compromise that for haste. But if we do the right things, we can go quickly.
Coming up in the next segment.
Our job is to help them to be more successful. That's sometimes providing them with more training, obviously with the products, but also making sure that we work with them.
You're listening to Growth Leaders, a podcast with Alison Eyring.
So I'm curious because in your business, so much of your interface with your customers is through independent agencies. What have you done as an organization to help them also go fast?
Here in Singapore, we have more than 5,000 financial consultants who are exclusively connected with Prudential, and they're the ones who deliver much of the service to our customers, whether it's through the advice, the financial analysis they do with them, but then later on helping them, for example, when they're making claims, etc. That's the vast majority of our people in Prudential are these financial consultants.
Over whom you don't really have 100% control.
We never fully control anybody.
Exactly. So how do you get them to go fast with you?
Well, they've typically been with us for quite a while. It's not uncommon for them to be with us for more than 30 years. One's got more than 57 years service. And so they've been around a long time. They're very close to our customers. They're very loyal to Prudential. And we do have a great partnership with them. Our job is to help them to be more successful. That's sometimes providing them with more training, obviously with the products, but also making sure that we work with them to upgrade their skills. So they're all fully technology enabled. It's a very good partnership where we help them to help their customers. And it's been working well for decades. And of course, the technology that's available now means we can do so much more to help them to be even more productive, to take even better care of their customers. And I think 80% of our people in Prudential are our financial consultants.
Right. Yeah. Sorry to say, but you just make this sound so easy. So I'm just kind of wondering, what is it that you're doing as the leader of this organization to help your leaders kind of all go in the same direction?
Some of the critical things that we work on are, firstly, alignment of direction, of purpose, of values. So we're pretty strict that if people are not excited by our purpose, they shouldn't be here. And especially we're strict at the leadership level on the values, that if people can't live the values, then it's not going to work. So we need to be able to collaborate. We all need to encourage innovation. For example, we all need to take empowerment and to empower other people. So they're the non-negotiables. So there's quite a lot of work to make sure we have the right people in the leadership level and right the way through the organization. So spent this morning with a bunch of people managers from every every level. Well, we got them together for 2 days, again, reinforcing our culture and expectations of them. So every people manager, it's important that they're with us on this journey, then getting alignment on the objectives and then the priorities, because there's so many things we can do, and baking that into people's objectives, then really holding them accountable and measuring them and the outcomes, and then doing something with that, rewarding and recognizing and promoting people who are doing what you want the right way, and then dealing with those who can't.
I really love that, because I think some of the most basic things that make us human are what also help us to change. So I love you spending time with your leadership team and your people talking about purpose and about what's important and how they focus themselves. And what's your last piece of advice that you would give a leader that needs to bring about profound change within their organization?
2 or 3 things I would say is, once you know what your purpose is or what it is you're trying to change to, then don't make any compromises and hook everything to that. The other thing that's stood out time and time again is over-communicate. Over-invest in communication. Assume that you're only doing 1/10 of the communication that you should be doing, and keep ramping it up, and link all of the communication to what it is you stand for, what the purpose is. And they're not my rules. I picked them up in lots of books that seem to say the same thing.
But it's a great rule.
And it works.
Know your why. Build energy around it. Keep people aligned on it. Hold them accountable for it.
Yeah. And seems to work, yeah.
Wilf, thanks very much for joining me today.
No, pleasure's all mine. Thanks, Alison.
Thanks. Thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to Growth Leaders wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a comment and a rating. We'd love to hear what you think. If you have questions about growth or growth leadership, please email us at growthleaders@organizationsolutions.com. Growth Leaders is produced by Organization Solutions in partnership with MediaCorp. Many thanks to Dee Kirk, Sean Young, Barry Toe, Keith Tan, Zach Rassley, and Susan Eyring.